I always look forward to testing the Google Pixel phone release every single year, because while every smartphone camera is a far stronger blend of hardware and software than a more traditional camera, the Google Pixels just take this to a far more obvious level than pretty much any phone on the market. And the Pixel 8 Pro is absolutely no different. It might just be the most overt that Google has ever been with the software on their smartphones, and it certainly poses the question, where does a camera become more software than it actually is hardware in the first place? So in this video we're going to find out, along with the main question, is this phone worth your money from a camera perspective? So it's becoming a slight tradition here on the channel that when I'm covering the Google Pixel phones, I give you guys a chance to win one. So here we go, just in time for Christmas this time. If you are interested in winning a Google Pixel 7a, stick around to a bit later in the video and I will give you the full details on how to enter to win a Google Pixel of your own. So for the first time, we're seeing a full array of 48 megapixel sensors on the Pixel 8 Pro. The only exception is the front-facing camera. So every single camera on the back of the phone is a 48 megapixel resolution, and that should just mean they have much more consistency. And actually that was one of my complaints last year on the Google Pixel 7, so that is a big improvement.
The photos from the Pixel 8 Pro are really genuinely fantastic. Like, I think this is one of my favorite kind of do-it-all point-and-shoot cameras. It's a bit like the iPhone in the fact that everything you kind of point it at does end up looking pretty much perfect straight out of camera, and the changes that Google have done to bring every camera to that 50 megapixel resolution has made a big difference, because everything feels far more consistent than it has done in previous years. The ultra wide is good, the kind of main camera is really good, and the telephoto is fantastic as well. You can see from these variety of zoom ranges that everything feels consistent and cohesive. The telephoto actually seems to be a little bit more impressive to me than last year. It did feel like the quality was reduced in last year's camera for the 120mm zoom lens, so I'm really glad to see that Google has kind of bumped that performance, and it is actually really nice. Like, I love shooting with a zoom on this phone. One of the reasons the camera is so versatile is obviously all of the software processing that's going on, and it does mean that the Pixel 8 spits out really well balanced, very nice usable images. Obviously, with this being a kind of benefit or usable feature, it does come with a downside, and that
is that they can kind of continue this trend of looking slightly computer generated. They don't always look like total real normal photos. It feels to me like they have an aversion to allowing any natural noise into the photos. Exposures are still very even, and we'll talk about this further in detail when we talk about the insane amount of software processing going into each and every photo taken on this phone. But overall, I do think this comes down to a personal choice, and I guess that choice is, do you like the Pixel look? Because if you don't, and it is kind of fairly defined at this moment in time, for me, I actually do like the personal look overall for, I would say, like casual photos, like photos if I'm sharing for travel or like Instagram stories or photos with friends. It certainly isn't a massive problem for me that the photos come out looking slightly over processed, I would say, for my personal taste. But like I said, for that usage, it's absolutely fine. You also always have as a backup that you can shoot RAW on this phone, which obviously does eliminate a fair bit of the processing. So you kind of have that option that you can shoot RAW or you can shoot JPEGs, and you can process them to look however you'd like to look.
As an example, this is a pixel image. This is a kind of a JPEG, so there's obviously a lot of automatic processing going on, and you can see that I've dragged the RAW file for this corresponding image into Photoshop. I'm doing this in Photoshop, you can do this in Lightroom, but I've been playing around with these colors and you can see the before and after. So this is the original RAW, and then these are just some very simple edits, kind of mainly exposure corrections that I've applied to the image, and you can just see the difference, and we go from the pixel kind of JPEG to the edited RAW, and there's a lot more contrast, a lot more artistic than the standard pixel version. So you can customize these images a lot to your preference if you want to do that.
And now we're starting to talk about the camera software. And this is when things go from like cool to pretty crazy. One really fantastic change this year is that the camera app on the Pixel 8 Pro has been absolutely transformed. You have manual controls kind of entirely baked into the standard camera app. So there's not a separate pro mode or anything. It's kind of always here. You get access to an exposure slider and full manual controls. It's actually one of the best implementations I've actually seen from manual controls. This is a really good change from Google. And another thing Google pushes massively in their marketing is obviously their AI photo modes. This is something that everyone will be very familiar with if you've seen any of the Pixel adverts. There's a few new ones this year. So there's one called Face Unblur, which obviously you can probably work out. This is going to unblur any faces in photos if someone is like moving in the shot. On the whole, I do actually think this does a really good job, and it's not going to save anything kind of really drastic, very, very blurry, but I would say it kind of really does do a good job on kind of general blurry shots, and it doesn't go over the top, which I think is often a problem with these types of features and functionalities. This one is really kind of good standard and won't ever look just like crazy weird. You still have your motion modes, again, for kind of things like long exposures and action pans. I'm glad that Google have kept these in, as they're really, really fun to shoot with. It's kind of always one of my highlights with actually shooting with a Pixel phone, is you have these kind of fun, creative modes, like literally at the touch of a button, which is significantly easier than it would be on a standard traditional camera. There's a new feature that by taking a burst of photos in a group setting will essentially merge all of these photos together, so it will get one where people are all smiling and looking at the camera, but the actual photo, that actual photo never existed in the first place. It's using a collection of those photos and combining them using AI. That's actually fairly mad. I didn't actually have a situation to use it in my own personal life, but certainly from their marketing and from reviews that I've seen online, this is a cool and kind of usable feature if and when you have that type of setting. Another really underrated feature, and it's not kind of AI based, but it is something that's very important for a lot of people, so I thought I'd mention it. Google cameras have a feature called Real Tone, and this is for people with darker skin tones, which sometimes aren't accurately represented on other camera brands in a totally accurate way. So it's a fantastic inclusion that Google includes every year on their Pixel phones, and it is a massively appreciated feature. And then taking things to a next level when we're talking about AI, they've created something to take Magic Eraser even further, and it's called the Magic Editor. And this certainly gets into where we talk about like what is a photo in the first place. This literally lets you highlight subjects within a photo, move them around or like resize them in the frame, and it will use regenerative AI to build the other elements in the photo in the scene. It's very similar to Magic Eraser, which is still accessible on the Google phones for kind of a simpler edit. And these features obviously existed on Photoshop and other systems, but Google is allowing them to be accessible directly on their phones, and that's certainly only a good thing. Magic Editor, I would say, is right now like okay. It doesn't seem amazingly accurate, and it's certainly not as good as Photoshop's generative fill feature, but I'm sure it's Google, it's going to get better all the time. So going from photo to video, and last year I kind of ragged on the Google Pixel 7's video performance, and I basically said that whilst the photos are incredible and close to the leading cameras in the field and it comes down to personal preference, I was honest and said that the iPhone is leaps and bounds ahead when it comes to video on smartphones. And I'm really happy to report that that's kind of no longer the case. Video is definitely drastically improved on the Pixel 8 Pro compared to last year's Pixel 7 generations. And if you remember, I was actually having a big problem with white balancing during videos. That has been completely balanced out. I didn't experience any of that kind of sort. Standard video is very good colors. The stabilization seems to be improved over last year as well. Overall, some very good improvements to standard video shot on the Pixel 8 Pro. And then to level up video functionality even further on the Google Pixel line, they've introduced something called Video Boost. So this is essentially what Google is doing to your photos each and every time you take one. So this is like a blend of exposures and a ton of computational processing going into each and every frame. So this is Google's attempt to bring that processing from images to videos. The bad news is that this is server side, so it doesn't happen locally on your phone. So it only applies to videos that you've 1, turned Video Boost on for when you've shot them, and 2, that you've backed up to Google Photos. So after this, there's some processing that goes on, and you'll have a temporary video file on your phone until Google spits out a boosted video file, which can take up to 6 hours. So this is certainly not an ideal process. The biggest area of gain for Video Boost is low light videos, which definitely do look fantastic. In fact, Google says they are now the best low light video on any smartphone. So I actually thought, of course, this would be fun to compare the iPhone 15 Pro to the Google Pixel 8 Pro, specifically talking about low light video.
So here we go. I've got 3 videos here. They're all labeled correspondingly. I've got the iPhone footage, I've got the pre-boosted, so the kind of standard Pixel video, and then the video boosted Pixel video. I think the biggest noticeable difference is that the Pixel actually ends up looking far more realistic than it would normally. It's certainly brought the blacks into looking much more in line with the iPhone 15 Pro. This one I'll do full screen here so you can actually see the difference. So this is the iPhone 15 Pro, and I think you'll all agree this is a very nice shot, apart from the horrible glares. Then we move on to the standard Pixel 8 Pro video. So this is the this would be without the video boost feature on, and you can see that there is definitely much more visible noise. This would be like kind of, I would describe as okay, but it's certainly not as good as the iPhone 15 Pro. And then finally we switch to the video boosted shot. And really it feels like, for me, everything about this image seems better. It's kind of improved the noise performance, the sharpness of the image. It looks brighter without also adding additional noise. So it definitely is really doing its job in terms of the computational processing that's going into the images. My main complaint is just that it's a bit of an annoying process, having to wait for it to upload and download, and the fact that it's not done locally.
Even with the new Video Boost active, the global standard right now in video performance, for me anyway, is Apple Lock on the iPhone 15 Pro. This still remains for me the closest you can get to a professional grade video on a smartphone. Things like highlight roll-off are just not replicable using a more standard video. I do think it's quite indicative that Google actually haven't included log mode on the Pixel 8 Pro. It's definitely a very fair criticism that essentially nobody other than videographers care about things like shooting a log. Normal people just actually won't ever shoot like this on their phone. So actually something like Video Boost actually makes more sense from like a usability standpoint. I haven't talked about the front-facing camera very much. I tend not to shoot a lot using the front-facing camera on my smartphone, but something that's just worth noting is that on the front-facing camera, the low light performance is absolutely horrendous when it comes to video. This is not scientific. I'm like not comparing it to other smartphone cameras, because it is definitely a bit of a thing that front-facing cameras on smartphones are bad in low light. But the one on the Pixel 8 Pro, I'm not sure whether this was specifically bad, but my goodness, it does get some serious noise in there.
From low light video to low light photos, and the good news is this is mostly unchanged. The Pixel is still one of the leaders when it comes to low light photography. It is an absolutely fantastic low light photography device. Things can get a bit mushy on the telephoto, so obviously the sensor is obviously not quite as large. And again, I think this actually is my kind of a similar complaint to last year, that the kind of artificial feeling of Pixel photos is exemplified in low light photos. So it definitely looks more artificial than other brands, but it is absolutely fantastic in terms of actually capturing as much available light that you can in the scene.
So if you've made it into this point in the video, this is the time you've been waiting for. If you are interested in winning a Google Pixel 7a for yourself, it's very, very easy. It's open worldwide. All you need to do is drop a like on this video and then just comment down below, just one comment. And actually, let's make this a little bit fun. So bringing back the meme that I threw in at the start of the video, you are given this choice. Which button are you hitting? Are you going red button or green button? In roughly a month, I will announce a winner on my YouTube community section. I will send you out a brand new Google Pixel 7a. So to bring the video around to the question at the start of the video, first of all, is the Google Pixel 8 Pro, this phone, worth your money? I think it is, absolutely. For one, its kind of direct comparison on the iPhone line is the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and that's going to run you $200 more than this phone. So you're immediately getting a pretty big discount, a pretty good deal. This is absolutely one of the leading smartphones out on the market. I think the biggest consideration comes down to if you like the style of photos that the Google Pixel does produce. Especially in low light, it definitely has its own style, and the Pixel is the closest phone, I would say, to them not actually looking like photos and almost becoming digital art, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. After all, the Google Pixel 8 Pro impressed me massively when it stacked up against my professional Sony a7 IV, and if you want to check out that video, you can do so right here.